to anything else. Take a quiet moment for yourself. The energy surrounding you from August 17th through August 23rd, 2026 feels like a week of quiet realizations, important decisions, and emotional release. From the outside, your life may look as though everything is moving normally. You are working, handling responsibilities, taking care of things, thinking about the future. But underneath that calm surface, something much deeper is happening. You are beginning to understand what you can no longer carry. For a long time, you may have believed that being strong meant handling everything yourself. You solve problems before anyone asks. You notice what needs to be done. You think ahead. You try to prevent mistakes before they happen. And when something goes wrong, your first instinct may be to ask yourself what you could have done differently. But this week, the tarot asks you to stop doing that for a moment. Not every problem was your fault. Not every ending was caused by something you did. Not every person who walked away was meant to stay. And not every delay means you made the wrong decision. Sometimes life simply moves in a direction we don't understand until much later. That may be one of the biggest lessons of this week. The beginning of the week, especially around August 17th and 18th, may bring you into a reflective mood. You could find yourself thinking about something that happened months ago, perhaps even years ago. It may be a person you haven't spoken to in a long time, a career decision, a financial choice, or an opportunity you once allowed to pass. You may suddenly wonder, what if I had chosen differently? But don't stay trapped inside that question, because the person who made that decision back then didn't know what you know now. You didn't have today's experience. You didn't have today's wisdom. You didn't know which people would stay and which would leave. You didn't know which doors would eventually close. You made the best decision you could with the information you had at the time. And perhaps it's time to forgive yourself for not knowing the future. Virgo, you can be incredibly hard on yourself. You may forgive other people for mistakes that you would never forgive yourself for making. You may understand someone else's reasons. You may give them another chance. You may tell yourself that they were tired, confused, afraid, stressed, or simply going through something. But when you make a mistake, your mind may replay it again and again. This week asks you to change that. You are allowed to be imperfect. You are allowed to learn. You are allowed to make a wrong turn and still arrive somewhere beautiful. And perhaps the most surprising thing is that a mistake you have been regretting may actually have protected you from something that would have hurt you even more. There are things we lose and only later realize they were never meant to remain. That realization may come through strongly this week. If you are in a relationship, the tarot shows a need for emotional honesty. You may have been thinking about something for a while but haven't known how to bring it up. Perhaps maybe you've been giving more than you receive. Maybe you have been waiting for them to notice that something has changed. Or perhaps you are simply exhausted from always being the person who keeps everything organized and emotionally balanced. This week, you don't have to carry the relationship alone. Love should be a shared responsibility. You can tell your partner what you need. You can admit when you're tired. You can say when something hurt you. And you can also tell them when you appreciate them. Sometimes we become so focused on fixing what is wrong that we forget to recognize what is right. A sincere conversation could bring you closer. Something that has felt distant may become warmer again. A misunderstanding may finally be cleared. And you may realize that your partner has been carrying fears of their own. But if you're in a relationship where communication repeatedly fails, this week may make that impossible to ignore. You may have been making excuses for someone because you remember the good version of them. But relationships cannot survive only on memories. They need effort in the present. They need honesty. They need respect. They need two people choosing each other. If you are the only one choosing, eventually you will become exhausted. And the tarot doesn't want you to lose yourself trying to keep a relationship alive. If you are single, Virgo, there is a softer romantic energy around you. You may not immediately recognize it as something important. Someone could enter your life through work, a friend, an educational environment, a professional connection, or even a casual online conversation. The interesting thing is that this person may not be your usual type. Maybe they are quieter. Maybe they don't try to impress everyone. Maybe they are more emotionally grounded than people you've dated before. And that could actually be what attracts you. You may notice that you don't feel anxious around them. You don't have to wonder whether they are interested. You don't have to analyze every message. You don't have to guess what they meant. Their actions may simply speak. And Virgo, after enough emotional uncertainty, consistency can feel almost unfamiliar. Don't mistake that calmness for boredom. Sometimes peace feels strange when you've become accustomed to emotional chaos. Let this connection develop slowly. Don't try to predict its ending before you've even experienced its beginning. If someone from the past returns, be especially careful. You may feel a familiar emotional pull, but familiarity doesn't automatically mean compatibility. Ask yourself whether the person has actually changed. Have their actions changed? Has the situation changed? Have you changed? If the answer is no, you may simply be standing in front of an old lesson wearing a familiar face. You don't have to repeat it. Career energy becomes stronger as the week progresses. Virgo, something you've been working on may finally receive recognition. Could be a project, a responsibility, a business idea, a skill, or simply the way you have consistently handled difficult situations. Someone may notice that you are reliable. Someone may trust you with something important. You may be asked to take a leadership role, or an opportunity could appear that requires you to step beyond what feels familiar. Don't immediately say no because you don't feel completely prepared. You are rarely going to feel 100% ready. Sometimes readiness means being willing to learn. You have already developed more skills than you give yourself credit for. You may also receive useful advice from someone experienced. Listen carefully. Not every piece of advice needs to be followed, but one sentence from the right person could save you months of unnecessary struggle. Financially, the tarot shows a week of greater awareness rather than reckless expansion. You may become more conscious of where your money is going. Perhaps you've been spending emotionally. Perhaps you've been putting off a financial decision. Perhaps you've been waiting for a payment. Or maybe you are thinking about creating a second source of income. This is a good period to become more organized. But don't allow organization to turn into fear. You don't need to control every dollar because you're afraid something will go wrong. You simply need a plan. And there is a difference between being careful and being afraid. You may also discover that something you already know how to do could become financially valuable. Your ability to organize, your attention to detail, your knowledge, your writing, your communication, your creativity, your ability to solve problems. Something you have considered ordinary may actually be one of your greatest strengths. Don't underestimate yourself simply because your talent feels natural. Around August 19th and 20th, the energy becomes more emotional. This may be the point where something you've been avoiding finally comes to the surface. You may have to make a decision. You may receive information. Someone may reveal something. Or you may simply reach your own emotional limit. And that doesn't necessarily mean something bad happens. Sometimes reaching your limit is what finally forces you to stop accepting something that has been draining you. You may suddenly say, "I can't do this anymore." And for the first time, those words may not come from anger. They may come from peace. You may realize that you are tired of trying to make everyone happy. Tired of being the responsible one. Tired of always understanding other people. Tired of being available whenever someone needs you. Tired of pretending that you don't need anything in return. Virgo, you are allowed to receive. You don't always have to be the person who gives. You don't always have to be the one with the solution. You don't always have to be the strongest person in the room. Sometimes you can simply say, "I need help." And the right people will not think less of you. They will come closer. This week may also teach you something about boundaries. You may have someone in your life who expects too much from you. They may not even realize it, because you've always been capable. You've always handled it. You've always said yes. But when you finally say no, the relationship may change. Don't be afraid of that. A healthy relationship can survive a boundary. An unhealthy relationship may reveal itself because of one. That distinction is important. As August 21st approaches, you may begin feeling more confident about a decision that previously frightened you. Perhaps you have been thinking about changing jobs, starting something new, ending something, moving, taking a relationship more seriously, or simply changing the way you live. You don't need to explain the decision to everyone. Some people will understand. Some won't. That's okay. Your life does not require unanimous approval. You may have spent too much time trying to make your decisions understandable to people who don't have to live with the consequences. This week, let yourself choose based on what is right for you. Not what looks best from the outside. Not what makes the most sense to someone else. What makes sense to your life. And if you make a decision, don't keep reopening it every night in your mind. There is a difference between reflection and self-doubt. Reflection asks, did I learn something? Self-doubt asks, what if I'm wrong? You can learn without punishing yourself. You can move forward without knowing everything. And you can trust that if something changes later, you will handle that too. By August 22nd and 23rd, the emotional energy becomes much lighter. You may receive a message you've been waiting for. You may hear something positive about work. A financial situation may improve. A relationship may become clearer. Or perhaps nothing dramatic happens at all. And yet you feel different. You feel calmer. You feel less attached to outcomes. You feel like you can breathe again. That may actually be the biggest blessing. Because sometimes we expect a huge event to prove that our life is changing. But real change can be quiet. You stop checking. You stop worrying. You stop chasing. You stop needing an explanation. You simply move on. And one morning you realize, I don't feel the same anymore. That is healing. Virgo, there is also a strong message about perfectionism. You may have been waiting for the perfect moment, the perfect plan, the perfect financial situation, the perfect opportunity, the perfect amount of confidence. But perfection can become another form of procrastination. Sometimes you don't need the perfect plan. You need the next step. You can improve along the way. You can learn. You can adjust. You can change direction. Life isn't an exam where every answer has to be correct before you submit it. You are allowed to live. You are allowed to experiment. You are allowed to discover what works by trying things. And perhaps that is exactly what the universe is asking you to do. Take one step, then another. You don't need to see the entire road. You only need enough light for the next few meters. There may also be a moment this week when you realize that someone has been watching your progress from a distance. Someone may be impressed by how much you've changed. Someone may reach out. Someone may offer support. Someone may tell you something that makes you realize that your efforts were noticed after all. This could be professionally or personally. Don't dismiss compliments. Receive them. You don't have to immediately explain why you don't deserve them. Simply say thank you. You are allowed to be proud of yourself. And perhaps that is another lesson for this week. Stop minimizing your achievements. Stop saying, it wasn't a big deal. Stop telling yourself, anyone could have done it. Maybe not. Maybe you worked hard. Maybe you stayed when it was difficult. Maybe you kept going when nobody was watching. That matters. Your progress matters even when it isn't dramatic. And someone may recognize that this week. As the weekend approaches, you may begin thinking more seriously about the future. Not in an anxious way, in a hopeful way. You may start imagining what your life could look like if you stopped making decisions based on fear. What if you actually pursued the career you want? What if you allowed yourself to fall in love again? What if you stopped expecting disappointment? What if you trusted someone? What if you gave yourself permission to enjoy your life without feeling guilty? These questions may open something inside you, and perhaps you will realize that you have spent too much time preparing for what could go wrong. It is time to prepare for what could go right. That doesn't mean being naive. It means leaving room for possibility. Virgo, the tarot does not show you a week of instant perfection. It shows you a week of alignment. Things begin making more sense. Your priorities become clearer. Your relationships reveal themselves. Your career direction becomes more obvious. Your financial thinking becomes more mature. And your emotional boundaries become stronger. You may begin the week carrying something heavy. And you may end it realizing that you don't need to carry it anymore. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was someone's opinion. Maybe it was an old relationship. Maybe it was the belief that you had to be perfect. Whatever it is, you are allowed to put it down. You have carried it long enough. And when you do, you may discover something surprising. There is space inside you again. Space for new people. New ideas, new opportunities, new love, new dreams, and perhaps most importantly, space for yourself. So Virgo, don't be afraid if this week feels emotionally revealing. Don't run away from what you discover. If something hurts, listen to why. If something excites you, pay attention. If someone disappoints you, believe what their actions are showing. If someone supports you, appreciate them. If an opportunity appears, consider it. And if your heart tells you that something has reached its end, don't automatically fight that feeling. Some endings are not failures. Some endings are doors. August 17th through August 23rd may quietly teach you that you don't have to have everything figured out before moving forward. You simply need to trust the person you have become. The person who survived the difficult seasons. The person who learned from mistakes. The person who kept going. The person who became wiser. The person who now knows what they will and will not accept. That person is ready. And maybe you are too. By the end of this week, you may look back and realize that the biggest change didn't happen in your career or your finances or even your relationships. It happened in the way you see yourself. You stopped questioning whether you were enough. You stopped believing that every problem needed your solution. You stopped thinking that every ending meant you had failed. You stopped trying to control everything. And you started trusting life a little more. Virgo, you don't need to become someone completely different. You simply need to stop hiding the person you already are. Your sensitivity is not weakness. Your intelligence is not something you need to apologize for. Your standards are not unreasonable when they come from self-respect. Your need for peace is not selfish. And your dreams are not too big simply because they take time. Let this week unfold naturally. Don't force the answer. Don't chase the person. Don't panic about the delay. Don't punish yourself for the past. Just keep moving. One honest decision at a time. One healthy boundary at a time. One brave step at a time. Because something is beginning to change, Virgo. And perhaps the most beautiful part is that you don't have to chase it. You simply have to be ready to recognize it when it arrives. The chapter ahead may not be perfect, but it can be real, can be peaceful, can be yours. And as August 23rd comes to an end, you may finally understand something your heart has been trying to tell you for a long time. You were never behind. You were becoming ready. And now, you are finally ready to move forward.